Hello, everyone. So, I was getting ready for bed, and I was thinking about how we have gotten so much done at such a fast pace. So, I wanted to make a pretty quick video just reviewing some of the basic things we did. Right now, I'm looking at the triangles. If you want to pull yours out to follow along so you don't get confused with what I'm talking about. And also, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint in Canvas, if you go under modules, look for Judicial Branch and click on 10A. That will take you to the PowerPoint I'm using. So, this past couple of days we've been talking about two different triangles, right? You have your federal triangle and your state triangle. Your federal triangle is dealing with federal issues, which include any and all constitutional issues that will go to the Supreme Court. Any state suing any state, any person suing a state, or any person suing a foreign ambassador or foreign government officials. Everything else that happens, any crime, any other civil case is going to be going to your state court. So, make sure you know the difference between federal and state, and that's the first major difference. I'm going to focus on the federal triangle first, and we're going to work our way up. So your first level is the U.S. District Court. The U.S. District Court has original jurisdiction, which means it's the first time the case is heard. So when you think of the word jurisdiction, this is the what is the case about? It's the meat of the case. Are we talking about an act of terrorism? Are we talking about suing someone for custody? Are we talking about suing a business for, wrongful employment or anything like that? We need to figure out what the case is about. So in the federal case, let's say you wanted to sue the state of Virginia. The first place you're going to go is the U.S. District Court. You will have original jurisdiction because that's the first time it's heard. And if you would like, you can decide if you want a jury or not. Usually people don't have a jury, it's one judge, but again, that's up to you at that time. A verdict will be made here. If you are unhappy with it, or if the other party is unhappy with it, they're going to go to the Court of Appeals. In the Court of Appeals, you're going to have appellate jurisdiction, which means it's going to be heard for the second, third, or fourth time. That same case is just going to be reviewed by 3 judges, no jury. The lawyers are going to show up to the court. They're going to give both their sides to the judges. The judges will look at all the paperwork, make a verdict. They can either stick with the original verdict, they can reverse it, or they can just give it back to the lower court to decide. The last court on your federal triangle, and the most important court that we have, is the United States Supreme Court. You have 9 justices who sit on that bench, and they get to sit on there for life. They have tenure. They either get off by being impeached or dying or being considered mentally unable to do the job. Now, your Supreme Court has 2 kinds of jurisdiction. Limited original jurisdiction, which I explained in class. An example would be if you are suing your school district over an infringement of your right, if they infringed on your freedom of speech, on your freedom to petition, or something along those lines. You would go to state court, and the Supreme Court might hear about it, and they might actually take your case and take it to the Supreme Court. That means they would have limited original jurisdiction. They're going to be the first people to hear that case, which means it's a pretty massive deal, and it has to do with the Constitution. The other kind of jurisdiction they have is appellate jurisdiction. Any cases that work through district or appeals, they can decide to hear. If they decide to hear it from these lower courts, it would be appellate jurisdiction since it was already heard. Now, flip over to the Virginia court system. It said in your notes that we have one of the oldest judicial systems in the United States, which makes sense. We were one of the first states. But this is set up pretty differently. If you take a look, you're going to notice the first thing we have written here that's not over there is the term magistrates. And I told you in class to think about your magistrate as a secretary. Think of her or him or the group as Miss Hinton, right? You need to notify them if you're leaving the building. If you're coming in the building late, you need to make sure you have a pass. You need to make sure that they know where you are at all times. That's how magistrates work. So magistrates are in charge of all of they're going to issue your warrants, issue your arrests, bonds, subpoenas, any kind of search warrant, anything like that. You have to go to the magistrate's office. They receive complaints by cops, sheriffs, and citizens. So if you have a complaint about your neighbor, you can go into the magistrate office and really file documentation to take them to court. Magistrates are also the ones who set bail for all of your criminal cases. So if a criminal has to go to jail and they're allowed to have bail, that will be set by the magistrates. So your magistrates are part of the system, but they're not a level in your judicial system for the state court. Your first level is actually divided into two groups, right? You have your state district court, and then you have your state juvenile court. Sorry, I pointed really bad there. Your state district court is where all of your petty crimes are going to be going into. The vocab word we learned is misdemeanor. So if you steal a pack of gum from 7-Eleven, if you get in a small car accident, anything that's pretty small, you're just going to go to a general district court. If anyone is suing someone else for property damage, or if your parents are getting a divorce, or a disagreement between two parties, they're going to go to general district court. You have original jurisdiction. You do not have a jury. Think about Judge Judy or Judge Brown. And you just have that one judge, and they're going to be the ones who make the verdict. On the other side of district court, you have juvenile court. And this is for any child who's under the age of 18, and they either commit a crime or are part of some kind of court case, really anything that involves skipping school, child support, any kind of abuse, abandonment, child custody, adoption, anything along those lines. You would go to juvenile court, and 18 is the magic number. If you're under 18, you go to juvenile court. If you're above 18, you're going to be tried as an adult. Next level, going up, is circuit court, and this level is nowhere over here. So circuit court is for your much bigger crimes. Your felonies are going to be going there. So they're going to be dealing first with civil cases, anything with a large amount of money. So if two celebrities are getting a divorce and they're going to be splitting millions and millions of dollars, they're going to go to circuit court to decide how that exact number is going to be split up. For all criminal cases, this is where all the felonies are going to be going. And you are thinking the worst of the worst crimes, any kind of murder, rape, drugs, terrorism, anything like that is going to be going to circuit court. You have one judge. You do have a jury. You're going to want a jury in this kind of situation. And you're also going to have original jurisdiction, because remember, if you commit a felony, you're going directly to circuit court, and appellate jurisdiction. If a couple got a divorce in district court and the husband wasn't happy with the decision, he can appeal it, and then it would go to circuit court. So your circuit court is very, very busy. Next level, you have your Virginia Court of Appeals. It works exactly like your federal Court of Appeals. No jury, 3 judges, and only appellate jurisdiction. And then lastly, you have your Virginia Supreme Court. Every state does have their own Supreme Court, and they're all set up pretty differently. But just like your federal Supreme Court, your Virginia Supreme Court has limited original jurisdiction and appellate jurisdiction. And most cases that are going to be going here, they're going to be dealing with anything that deals with the Virginia Constitution. If the Virginia Constitution can't figure it out, then they're going to be sending it to the Supreme Court. As always, the best way to remember this stuff is to draw out your triangle. Make sure you know the definition of jurisdiction, and then make sure you know what each prefix or each word before it means. Original, limited original, appellate. We're going to be getting into civil and criminal cases. Make sure you look at that chart that I gave you where it has the civil process, the plaintiff, the defendant, the judge, the verdict, and then the criminal process, which is much more complex, right? You have your defense, you have your prosecution, you have a jury, you have an arraignment, you have all these different steps. So make sure you know the difference between those two and how that they could be applied to your dual court system in the United States. Hopefully this helped. Study hard.